It's 5 o'clock.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Hello, Marie.
Are you ready for this? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
Good evening, good evening. It's Wednesday, October 21st, 2015, and welcome to the BCS Experience. History, arts, culture, politics, in review and discussion. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. The BCS Experience takes a look at our rich history, African American history. We're going to share with you some known and unknown historical facts and information from the past and connect the dots on how they have impacted on our present day events and how they will definitely shape our future as African Americans in this country and around the world. The BCS Experience, history, arts, culture, politics, in review and discussion. This is Internet Radio and will be aired live every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. from the studios of the Iron Metropolis Images on the GoPro Radio Network. You see, I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you all across the country and around the globe. I want you to tune in every week on your computer or your phone. I want you to become a loyal listener, and I personally invite you to call in and lend your voices to this radio talk show to express your opinions on my weekly topics. This is social network radio at its finest. Now, here's the number for you to call in to be a part of the discussion. Call 347-884-9839. Once again, that number to call in is 347-884-9839. This week's topic, oh my goodness, guns and racism in America. Now, these are two of the most serious threats to our nation's national security and the very element keeping us from peace and tranquility at home and around the world. Oh boy. My show is the new Underground Railroad Express. Next stop is your neighborhood. All aboard to freedom and to Freedom Land. But before we meet my featured call-in guest this evening, a little bit of history. I want you to take a look at this video clip. It's about 3 minutes long, 3 minutes, 15 seconds long. See, my people, y'all need to check this out because this really explains a lot about what this gun insanity is all about. Roll the tape.
Now it's time for a brief history of the United States of America. Hi, boys and girls, ready to get started? Once upon a time, there were these people in Europe called pilgrims, and they were afraid of being persecuted. So they all got in a boat and sailed to the New World where they wouldn't have to be scared ever again.
Oh, I'm so relaxed. I feel so much safer.
But as soon as they arrived, they were greeted by savages, and they got scared all over again. So they killed them all. Now, you'd think wiping out a race of people would calm them down, but no. Instead, they started getting frightened of each other. Witch! So they burned witches. In 1775, they started killing the British so they could be free. And it worked, but they still didn't feel safe. So they passed a Second Amendment which said every white man could keep his gun. I loves my gun. Loves my gun. Which brings us to the genius idea of slavery. You see, boys and girls, the white people back then were also afraid of doing any work. So they went to Africa, kidnapped thousands of black people, brought them back to America, and forced them to work very hard for no money. And I don't mean no money like I work at Walmart and make no money. I mean $0. Nothing. Not a zip. Doing it that way made the USA the richest country in the world. So did having all that money and free help calm the white people down? No way. They got even more afraid. That's because after 200 years of slavery, the black people now outnumbered the white people in many parts of the South. Well, you can pretty much guess what came next. The slaves started rebelling. There were uprisings, and old masters' heads got chopped off. And when white people heard of this, they were freaking out and going, I want to live. Don't kill me, big black man. Well, just in the nick of time came Samuel Colt, who in 1836 invented the first weapon ever that could be fired over and over without having to reload. And all the southern whites were like, yeah! But it was too late. The North soon won the Civil War and the slaves were freed. Yep, they were free now to go chop all the old masters' heads off. And everybody was like, oh no, we're gonna die. But the freed slaves took no revenge. They just wanted to live in peace. But you couldn't convince the white people of this. So they formed the Ku Klux Klan. And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association. Soon politicians passed one of the first gun laws, making it illegal for any black person to own one. It was a great year for America, the KKK and the NRA. Of course, they had nothing to do with each other, and this was just a coincidence. One group legally promoted responsible gun ownership, and the other group shot and lynched black people. And that's the way it was all the way to 1955, when a black woman broke the law by refusing to move to the back of the bus. White people just couldn't believe it.
Well, I won't say move.
What's going on? Man, all hell broke loose. Black people everywhere started demanding their rights, and white people had a major freaky fear meltdown, and they were all like, run away! Run away! And they did. They all ran fleeing to the suburbs where it was all white and safe and clean. And they went out and bought 250 million guns and put locks on the doors, alarms in the houses, and gates around the neighborhoods. And finally, they were all safe and secure and snug as a bug. And everyone lived happily ever after.
Wow. Now, as amusing as animations can be, this was not that amusing. This is an animation about the guns and the proliferation of guns in this country. We're out of control, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, literally, ever since the last episodes of uprisings in the communities of Ferguson, Baltimore, Cleveland, we know that what the statistics have been telling us is that the sale of guns have just exploded all across America. This is incredible, all right? And it's not being sold in the black community. These are guns that are being purchased en masse in the white community. Who are they defending themselves against? That's why that animation piece is very important. And did you notice 1871, a very important year that's not to be unrecognized and unacknowledged. 1871 is when the KKK got started, and 1871 is when the NRA, the National Rifle Association, got started. We're going to talk about this, folks. We're out of control, and we've got a major problem going on right now in America. There are too many guns everywhere. All right, but I want to hear from you. So let's connect these dots and make sense out of it all. Call me, talk to me, 347-884-9839. All right, tonight I have a very special guest that's joining us. Joining me in the GoPro studio, she's in Brooklyn, but she's been on, it's been since April of 2013 when she was last on here, my dear good friend Marie Delos. She's a community social activist, a member of Moms Demand Action, and a former member of the United States Marine Corps. We need to talk about gun violence, the Second Amendment, police shootings, and black-on-black crime. Now, I want to hear from you. We want to talk about this and what can be done. Your suggestions and recommendations. Once again, that number to call, 347-884-9839. Marie Delos, welcome back to the BCS Experience. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing? Thanks for having me on your show again.
Well, it's been a while, Marie. 2 years.
It has been that long?
It's been
Wow.
2 years. And do you know, I looked back on the show 2 years ago just to see the kind of things we were discussing then, and it was about gun violence in America. And at that time, you were co-chair for the Coalition and Outreach of Moms Demand Action for Action Gun Sense in America. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is a well-organized group of moms all across the country. in every major city practically, and they are anti-guns. And they've made a major statement. And Marie, you were the co-chair back then. I believe you went to the White House, you went to Congress, you met all the important people, and now you are still fighting the fight, I hear.
Yes, I'm still fighting fight, but I just want to make one slight correction. We're
Go
not
ahead.
anti-gun, and
Okay.
that's a mistake. That is being actually that's being
Perpetrated. Okay.
mentioned
Yes.
constantly
Yes.
by the NRA that we're anti-gun. We're not anti-gun. We're anti-gun violence.
There you go.
We believe
Thank
in the
you.
right for responsible gun owners to have a gun.
Yes.
And there's certain groups that shouldn't have a gun. For example, felony domestic abusers shouldn't have a
Yes.
gun. Criminals shouldn't have a gun, and 2, 3-year-olds that's shooting each other in the head because their parents left the gun on top of the refrigerator, they shouldn't have a gun.
Amen.
But if you're a responsible gun owner and who went through a background check, then if this is the life that you want to live, then we do not fight against that. So we're not anti-gun. We're anti-gun violence.
Thank you for clarifying the position of moms. Again, demand action for Action Gun Sense in America. And that's an important group. It really is. You've done some great work out there.
Thank you. And the organization is Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense
For
in
Gun
America.
Sense.
But it kind of, because it's such a long title, it gets, it's better to just say Moms Demand Action.
Okay,
'Cause I
all
think
right.
that's the quickest and fastest way to go, because we do demand action. We demand action.
Yes, indeed. Now, I looked back on my comments back in April of 2013, and here's what the topic was that evening, Marie, because it's kind of, 2 years later, here we are. This was 2 years ago. Gun violence in America is our country's #1 crisis that is threatening our national security more than any outside terrorist threats. Every day, the tragedy of lost lives because of the excessive amounts of guns and weapons of destruction in our communities continue to bring our nation's civility to her knees. What are the issues, and how do we resolve what is now priority #1 with respect to ensuing peace, ensuring peace, and tranquility in our neighborhoods? That was 2 years ago, Marie.
Yes, I know.
And when I went back and looked over the mission statement for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, these are really excellent points of the 5 points that I know. #1, to ban assault weapons and ammunition magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Require background checks. #2, for all gun and ammunition purchases. #3, report the sale of large quantities of ammunition to the ATF and ban online sales of ammunition. #4, make gun trafficking a federal crime with serious criminal penalties. And #5, counter gun industry lobbyists' efforts to weaken gun laws at the state level. Now, Marie, of those 5 core statements, 2 years later, we have, in my, just recently with the presidential field and all of the wannabe presidential candidates, only 2 really have stepped out and made gun initiatives and common sense legislation a priority in their platform. What is wrong with our politicians?
Well, we should talk the positive of what happened now,
Yes.
versus 2008. In 2008, during the presidential election period, none of the candidates was talking about gun violence
That's
and
right.
gun rights.
Right.
It was a taboo subject back then. Everyone believed that if they did, I believe it was called a third rail issue.
Yes.
And all the politicians felt if they discussed it, they was going to lose the election, because the NRA, the executive, mind you, I should mention that we're not fighting against the NRA members per se, because a large amount of NRA members, I believe 89%, 90% believe in universal background check. We're talking about the extremists. We're talking about the NRA executives. Back then, the candidates could not speak about the Second Amendment and gun rights, and now we're actually having this conversation,
Yes.
and it really is a massive, massive improvement from 2008. We're excited. Yes, there are two candidates that's actually taking on the issues, but besides the presidential, there are senators out there, there's congressmen out there, and we even have in New York City, we even have people who's co-sponsoring a bill for universal background check that failed in the Congress.
Right.
Last year. They were actually co-sponsoring it. And so things are happening. It's happening slowly. I mean, slower than I would have thought when I joined this issue years ago.
Right.
But the improvement is happening. So all hopes are not, are not dire. We are making aggressive movements on a daily basis.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, we're going to take a break here, Marie. And when we're going to come back, we're going to talk about the Second Amendment. Because I think there's people who really are not aware of really the original statement and how it kind of progressed to where we are today. So don't go away, folks. This is a great topic for us to take on today. And I've got Marie Delus, who's going to help us move through the matrix on this. You're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. We'll be right back after these very important messages.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say, now is your chance. You can have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation and following, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We can help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own professional radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back on the BCS Experience. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. I'm talking to my good friend Marie Delus, who is a spokesperson for Moms Demand Action. The full title of the program, of course, is Moms Demand Action for Action Gun Sense in America. And she's currently also a community and social activist. I see Marie everywhere. She's kind of like the ever-ready bunny that's out there protesting and gay and really raising the awareness of a lot of our communities in New York and across the country. So I salute Marie Delus for her effort and the effort that she's making. It is making a difference, folks. We can make a change. And as it was 2 years ago that Marie was on our program. And back then, Marie, because I'm looking at some of the issues back then, we had the Columbine Massacre. We had the worst U.S. shooting ever. It kills in 33 at a Virginia campus. We had the Aurora, Colorado Dark Knight Rises shooting. We had West Virginia a sheriff that was shot and killed outside the courthouse. Oh, my God. And then we had, of course, had a Texas district attorney and his wife found dead in a county where the prosecutor was killed. And then, of course, 4-year-old shoots a 6-year-old in the head in Toms River, police say. Wow. And I mean, Marie, since that time, it seems like we have gotten even more out of control, even with the efforts of Moms Demand Action, because you guys have made a real impact in every state in this country. But what's going on, Marie? What are we, with the proliferation of guns, how do we start to decrease what seems to be an out of control gun access to too many people? What do we do?
I mean, for me, I mean, I'm not a policy person of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense. I'm actually what would be called a volunteer and also survivor, because a survivor is someone who actually been directly impacted by gun violence.
Yeah.
And I lost my nephew due to gun violence. So the policy talk, I always leave it up to the big guys. But one of the things that I myself noticed from being there for 3 years is there is such a large amount of guns in America, and there is a saying that there is the fact that at one household would have like 10 guns. So for almost every person in the United States, there is a gun.
Yeah.
So we have all these guns coming in, and then these guns are going straight into the various communities, into legal hands, right?
Yes.
And by them getting into the legal hands, these guns are the one that's affecting our communities and allowing us to kill each other. That's one. One of the major undertaking that we've taken, that I know that Moms Demand Action is pushing for, is the universal background check.
Okay.
And there is a constant debate about whether the universal background check will even work in America. But the fact is, universal background check requires that you have a background check for every single type of purchase of a gun, anytime. And most time, if you go into a gun show, if you go into a gun shop, yes, they will give you a background check. However, you could buy a gun on the internet. You could buy a gun behind Walmart and back of a car. You could put a classified on Craigslist and get a gun. And obviously, you know, the young people in the communities are getting these guns because the guns are coming in from outside of different areas. And it's coming into our communities. It's coming from like Virginia. It's coming from like North Carolina. There was a big bus that Ken Thompson, I believe it's Ken Thompson,
Yes, in
just the
Brooklyn,
other day.
district attorney, yes.
The district attorney, where he stopped the influx of guns that's coming in by just one guy who
Right.
brings it in.
Right.
And he had partners throughout the state, and he said how easy it was to bring the guns, and I believe he was bringing the guns through Chinatown, the Chinatown bus, and I used to take those buses all the time.
The
to
Bolt
DC.
bus, yes. Okay.
So that was my bus. That was
Yes.
like $25, $40. Are you kidding? I
Yes.
used to be on that bus back and forth until they started crashing.
I know.
You know, not to say anything negative about the China bus. I'm so sorry. Allegedly.
Yes,
But
okay.
I stopped taking that bus. But can you imagine I'm on the bus the last 3 years going to DC to fight for the safety of our community, and next to me is a young man or a young woman carrying a bag of guns underneath the
Right.
bus. I mean, this is what we have to fight against. I mean, and this is where it becomes a debate, because whenever you speak to the opponents, they're like, oh, universal background check will not solve anything, because a good amount of the killing that is done is because of the fact that there are criminals, and criminals will get guns anyway, and some of the mass shooters who actually killed others. And we don't like to name the mass shooters, by the way, because it's a program that another group of friends, Sandy Phillips, Karen, they have a program called No Notoriety, or Do Not Say His Name. So we
Right.
try not to say the names of the mass shooters. But a lot of people will say that, well, this person was able to get a gun because his parent got it, so the background check wouldn't have helped. And we understand that. We understand that a universal background check and no solution is the absolute solution. But that doesn't mean that we cannot do something to stop these killings, because guess what? It's not going to get any better.
No, you're right.
It
You're right.
continues to get worse.
You know what scares me, Marie, is this.
Yeah.
I'm a victim of gun violence in my family as well. My sister committed suicide from a weapon that she purchased. Not
I'm sorry, my
legally.
condolences.
Not legally. Got it illegally and committed suicide. She was suffering from bipolar. I also lost a roommate from college who was killed accidentally, gun violence, died in my arms. So I can't think of, I know nobody in this country who has not been affected by some form of gun violence in their family. And what really scares me, Marie, is that because I don't own a gun, and I have read the stories. I've had actually people tell me they have 200 guns in storage, and I'm thinking, what bothers me most is that after these incidents in Ferguson, and we had that situation in Cleveland, and it just pick a place, Baltimore.
Now,
Guns
what
have
about the
been
two mass shootings that we had in one day
in
a
one
couple of
day.
weeks ago?
That's right. And what scares me is because after each one of those incidents, gun sales went out the ceiling. And they're purchasing guns by the dozen. And guess what? I don't own a gun, but when I walk out into the street, I think I got a target on me. I fear for my life in my own country. And that's the insane part. And because I'm African American male and living in a community or a city where the rates of those incidents have been escalating, I don't feel safe, Marie. And that's a problem. I walk my own streets in America as an American with fear because someone out there has too many guns that may accidentally shoot me or make me part of an incident. And I can understand the frustration of a president who has come to the podium far too many times, as he said, and we're going to listen to that tape. It's a real short tape, about 2 minutes and 36 seconds. So let's roll that tape right now, Marie, because I want the folks to listen to a president who is truly frustrated about the issue of guns and the access to too many guns in this country. Let's listen in.
We talked about this after Columbine and Blacksburg, after Tucson, after Newtown, after Aurora, after Charleston. It cannot be this easy for somebody who wants to inflict harm on other people to get his or her hands on a gun. I've had to make statements like this too many times. Communities have had to endure tragedies like this too many times. We come together filled with sorrow for the 13 Americans that we have lost, with gratitude for the lives that they led, and with a determination to honor them through the work we carry on. I have come here tonight as an American who, like all Americans, to pray with you today and will stand by you tomorrow. And the federal government stands ready to do whatever is necessary to bring whoever's responsible for this heinous crime to justice. All of us are heartbroken by what's happened, and I offered the thoughts and prayers not only of myself and Michelle, but also of the country as a whole. And each time I learn the news, I react not as a president, but as anybody else would, as a parent. In the hard days to come, that community needs us to be at our best as Americans, and I will do everything in my power as president to help. The lives that were taken from us were unique. The memories their loved ones carry are unique, and they will carry them and endure long after the news cameras are gone. Any shooting is troubling. Obviously, this reopens the pain of what happened at Fort Hood 5 years ago. The country has to do some soul searching about this. This is becoming the norm, and we take it for granted in ways that, as a parent, are terrifying to me. The good news is I am confident that the outpouring of unity and strength and fellowship and love across Charleston today indicates the degree to which those old vestiges of hatred can be overcome. And each time this happens, I'm going to bring this up. Each time this happens, I am going to say that we can actually do something about it, but we're going to have to change our laws.
Wow. Marie, that's so heartbreaking. I mean, oh my God, to have to come to the nation, to the parents, to the relatives, and hear this refrain. It's like a broken record. And let me just tell you, Marie, here's some statistics. The Washington Post did an article a couple days ago on the statistics just for 2015. 789 people are shot dead by police this year alone. This year, 28 of them were black and unarmed. At least 71 people have been shot and killed by police across the United States within the last 30 days, according to the Washington Post data, and the database is based on news reports, public records, internet databases, and original reporting. Now, yes, I'm just talking about the police shootings, and then you compound that with the other individuals who have either had some mental defection, gone off and killed too many people. But look at our president who has to endure this. And I got to tell you, I don't know how you come to the podium and address a Congress who does nothing. That's what's insane. Marie, we got to do something about that Congress. I got to take a break here, Marie. But when we come back, because as promised, I mean, I really do appreciate you coming on to talk common sense to us. It's what we really need. And yes, we can make a difference, and we will make a difference. Folks, don't go away, because when we come back, we are going to talk about that Second Amendment as it was originally written. This is the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. We'll be right back after these very important messages.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
What if you can have an entire team of skilled professionals to help your business grow? Admin, accounts, marketing, and more, but only pay for the exact amount of support you need at virtually the same cost you'd pay for one full-time employee. With Virtual Professions, you can. One contact, one number gets you a team of virtual professionals for exactly what your business needs. It's 1-888-315-VPRO. That's 1-888-315-8776. Or online at www.virtualprofessions.net. Virtual Professions Incorporated, because you mean business. You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back on the BCS Experience. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. I have my dear friend Marie Delos on the phone, a very special woman who is a volunteer, very special volunteer for many issues, but one of her main issues and main causes is moms demand action for gun sense in America. And I got to tell you, folks, every day you wake up and you're wondering what's the next massacre, what's the next incident. It's almost every day. Well, folks, you know, I started off my show, I wanted to show you that little animation piece about the gun craziness in America. And like I said, 1871 is when the KKK started, and 1871 was when the National Rifle Association started. But listen to the Second Amendment. I want you to hear this piece of history, folks. You see, it was on September the 25th, 1789, the first Congress of the United States proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution. The 1789 Joint Resolution of Congress proposing the amendments is on display in the Rotunda in the National Archives Museum. Now, I grew up in Washington, Maria, and I've seen it several times because I've been down to the Smithsonian as well as to the National Archives. 10 of those proposed 12 amendments were ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures on December the 15th, 1791. Okay? Now, the ratified articles 3 through 12, constitute the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, or the United States Bill of Rights. You see, in 1992, 203 years later, it was proposed Article 2 was ratified as the 27th Amendment to the Constitution. Article 1 was never ratified. Now, here's what the original language of a Second Amendment read back in 1789. It reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, folks, that's the full extent of the original amendment known as the Second Amendment, guaranteeing a regulated militia. That's got to be the key phrase in that piece of article. But listen to this. I cannot share this enough with the United States. This is Chief Justice Warren Burger, in 1992. He says it was a very traditional American gentleman himself, a keen churchgoer and an occasional sport hunter. And this is what he had to say about gun control. The gun lobby's interpretation of the Second Amendment is one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American people by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. The real purpose of the Second Amendment was to ensure that state armies, the militia, they're known as National Guard, ladies and gentlemen, would be maintained for the defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any argument that it was intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to any kind of weapon he or she desires. Marie, we have really gone off track, haven't we?
We definitely have gone off track. You're absolutely right. And however, even in the tense of actually knowing that we're going off track, it doesn't stop what's going on in the world right now. We personally know that the Second Amendment states well-regulated militia.
Yes.
We know this. However, our counterparts is just focused on shall not be infringed.
That's right.
So between let me see, it's almost like it's one sentence that has practically four parts, right?
Pretty much.
You have one group of people, a person who's dealing with or discussing or deciphering well-regulated militia. So you have one group, and then you have the other group who is fighting for shall not be infringed. And we have to come together and get in the middle, because even though you're right, and you're absolutely positively right, it says well-regulated, and we know what well-regulated means. During the time of war, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We shouldn't have a civil war within the United States where we have to each have a gun to protect ourselves from each other. Even though we know that that's true logically, the fact is that we have a big gulf between two group of people, whereas one group like myself believes that I want to live in a world where I don't have to carry a gun at all time in order to feel safe. And I want to stop the gun violence so I could save the children of the world, that I could save the future. That's what I believe, and I fight for every day. That's why I believe what I believe all my friends and fellow advocates fight for. You have the other side, and some of them are my military friends,
Yeah.
which we fight at times, who believe that the only way to save our children, our future, is to have a gun. And I have a right to that gun because the Second Amendment says that I have that right, and it shall not be infringed. It shall not be. So how do we all come together to work together now to interpret the Second Amendment in a way where we could save lives?
You know,
And not
Marie, I
lives.
think one of the answers, and this is because when you look at the amount of money being spent every year, annually, from our tax dollars, 57% of every dollar goes to a defense budget. The defense budget then recollects and is, when you think about defense budget, now we're talking about nuclear weapons, we're talking about armament, we're talking about high-tech manufacturing of what they call weapons of mass destruction, but that also includes, because when you talk about 57 cents out of every dollar going towards defense armament and the weapons industry, now you're talking about the gun manufacturers. These are the people who are making these guns. And at that point, now you realize why there's so many guns, not just in our country, but our country exports, as part of its diplomacy, weaponry. How did Iraq and Iran and all Syria and the other countries, where you just name a place where there's a confrontation, where did they get their weapons from? Most of them, even Saudi Arabia, one of our most trusted allies, got them from the Defense Department. So we're spending our dollars more on building weaponry than we are on social services. And why are our roads breaking down? Why are we having so many issues in our inner city where their jobs are high unemployment? It's because all of our money, Marie, is going towards building weapons. And it gets even worse than that, Marie, because you're a fellow Marine, Semper Fidelis. You know this because our Army is the world's most armed army anywhere. And the technology that's been given to them, yes, protects us. And unfortunately, Marie, we're the bully in the room, because if you don't do it our way, we got the gun. That's how we kind of initiate our diplomacy nowadays, which is so sad, because diplomacy is about engaging peace.
And a lot of the stuff that you're saying, Byron, is valid, right? I acknowledge a lot of the stuff that you're saying, especially when it comes to the armament of United States military, the the Black Lives Matter issue. I acknowledge it, and I've marched with Black Lives Matter. I also attended a police officer's funeral and everything. But there shouldn't be a but all of the various issues that you're saying is valid and is out there. For me, the issue has become more nuclear, more condensed, if you understand what I mean. I am fighting for the lives of the kids in my community and other community, right? I am fighting to stop guns from coming to my community, and the way that I believe this could happen is universal background check. When I start thinking about all the other bigger various issues, I feel like my head is going to explode, right? Because I can't, as one woman, go out there and just tell the President of the United States we can't have any more wars. I can't fight the fight. I mean, instead of standing for the rights of my black brothers and sisters and marching with them and expecting police officers to be respectful of citizens, and also vice versa, because I have sons, especially my oldest son. I've seen my oldest son cuss out a cop so bad that it's like, wow, and he's still alive.
He's still
so
alive.
There's various issues across the world, right?
It really is.
Each side have their own point, and each side is going to fight their battles. And what you're saying is correct, and we could debate this forever. But for me, right now, at this time in my life, I need to stop these killings that's happening on the street level. I need to stop I want to stop the mass shooting to stop. I want to have universal background check for all gun sales. I am focused on that issue, that minute issue in some people's mind, because if you think about the big world problems, they think that the issue of gun violence is so minute and so small, but it's not. That's what I have to concentrate on, and that's what I have to fight for, because we need to start somewhere. And the way I feel that I have to start and I have to continue fighting is on that street level and the community level.
Yes, and you do
a
good job of it.
Trying to make sure that these guns do not get in the wrong hands.
I agree, and it takes a community. As the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to save the village, to protect the village. And I'm going to play this. We got to take a break here in about a minute and a half, Marie. And when we come back, I'm going to play the last video piece, because you said something very, very close to my heart and to our hearts. We are the African diaspora. And in this country for 400 years, we have been fighting for equal rights and justice and freedom. And yet, our own country has turned its back on many of our communities. And I'm going to play something that takes us back to a period when lynching in 1919 and gun violence and KKK, because it's not taught in our schools. And a lot of what is missing is intelligent dialogue, informed dialogue. And when you don't know your history, unfortunately, we are left to commit and repeat the same problems over and over. So folks, come back to us. That's next segment. I'm going to talk about this piece, 1919. It was called the Red Summer. And then we're going to talk about the amount of weapons that the Defense Department is accessed by police departments. But there is hope and really good things that are being done to restrict those departments to the access of weapons and mass destruction and armament. So come on back. You're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. And my good friend Marie Delos, who's really given us some good common sense. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Why are you paying for radio? Are you serious? GoPro Radio offers content for free. Go to www.goproradio.com and listen to original, irreverent, and exceptional talk shows. It's free. Go to www.goproradio.com now. It's that simple and free. www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head. Oh, and did I mention it's free? You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Mel, just roll the tape.
Are you ready for this?
Well, all right, we're back. We're going to look at this next tape, this next segment. I just want folks to take a look at this and listen in to some commentary that's all the way back from 1919. Roll it, Mel.
Mrs. Moore has fond memories of her youth, but that was not always the reality for Negroes in Omaha or the nation as a whole. The end of World War I brought on a lot of change. The enlisted men were returning home. Government spending on arms was winding down. Competition for work became fierce. For the first time, whites had to compete with blacks for jobs. Whites turned their anger and frustration on black neighborhoods, spreading terror and fear nationwide. Many were killed. The year was 1919, and it was the bloodiest summer ever between the races. Omaha was not spared its measure of violence. That September, a white woman, Agnes Lobeck, accused a black packing house worker, Will Brown, of rape. He was arrested, held and questioned by police in the Douglas County Jail. Out on the street, a mob of angry men demanded Brown be handed over to them. The police refused. The mob then set fire to the jail. As officers battled the flames, the mob stormed in and dragged Brown out to the street below. By now, the mob had grown to several thousand.
Omaha Mayor Ed Smith tried to stop them, but the vigilantes turned their rage on him. The mayor narrowly escaped being lynched and was cut down in time to save his life. Brown was not so lucky. He was shot hundreds of times. Then his body was hung from a light pole. The body was dragged through the streets of downtown Omaha. Finally, it was torched and burned. By morning, the city was placed under martial law. Troops were posted along the streets to prevent further outbreaks of violence. The riot was confined to the courthouse and parts of downtown. However, its impact extended deep into the black community.
And I remember the humiliation. I remember that I was ashamed. I can remember the fear among the people of the North, and it was a fear for all of us. There wasn't too many of the black children in high school at that time, so for a couple of days most of us stayed away. We were very ashamed, very ashamed.
Why were you ashamed?
Well, you know, when you're 14, when things like that kind of shock you, and you can't believe this, that can do anything, and then it kind of strikes you for maybe the first time that because your color, that kind of does something to you. That kind of does something to you. It always did, and it always has, and still does.
Wow. Marie, I don't know if you may want to turn this when you get through being a part of this interview. Take a look at this live, as we do live streaming, so you get a chance to see these visuals that I've been playing, and they are connected. The dots are. We have got to connect the dots, and of course, like I said, my job here is to tell our history, make sure we don't forget our history, and then try to make sense of it all. We got another phone caller on the line. Good evening. Welcome to the BCS Experience. Who are you? Hello. Welcome to the BCS Experience. Who's calling? Okay, well, you can just listen as well. We got Marie Dallas on the phone. And Marie, here's a statistic that I need to share with you. This just recently happened. The Department of Defense orders police nationwide to give back grenade launchers, bayonets, and tanks. I know you're aware of this. This is rather significant because the Defense Department, that's why I gave you that statistic of 57% of our budget, tax dollars, goes towards the Defense Department. And when they're not being used in military confrontations, somewhere between the confrontations in Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan, and wherever we've been, some of that equipment has filtered into the police departments. We saw it being used in Baltimore. We saw some of it actually being used in Boston after the bomb went off with the marathon. High-tech weaponry that the military has now passed down to the police departments. But the Defense Department and an executive order by President Obama has said you've got to return that back to the Defense Department. So, Marie, you're a former military person. How do you feel about when you're out there as a volunteer in the streets and all of a sudden you're looking at high-tech weaponry that you're more familiar with being on the front lines facing an enemy, and now our police department is using some of that against our volunteers who have a right to protest? How do you feel about that?
Well, since I am military personnel, also since I do work for the city of New York, and also since I have cops in my family, and also since I work with cops almost on a daily basis, I'm going to not comment too much on that aspect of it. Because, you know why? Because I don't want it to appear as if I'm against cops. Okay?
Oh, I'm not against cops either. Believe me, I want my community protected. But I don't.
Exactly.
But Marie, go ahead.
I won't focus on the cops per se. Why don't we talk about why is those military weapons being on our community as a whole?
Yes.
Because it's not only the cops that have these military type, assault type weapons. the AK-15s.
Yes.
It's not the police officers. It's the kids that's on the communities. It's the 12 to 21-year-olds that's actually getting these guns and these these handguns and these multi-magazine guns and shooting each other in the street. The problem itself is the fact that these massive amount of weapons are being brought into our communities, whether it's in the hands of the cops or whether it's in the hands of the felons themselves. We have these mass amount of weaponry. Now, should I say that the cops should not have guns, whatever type of guns they have? I don't know if I want to say that. I don't know if I want to say that. I don't want a cop to have a machine gun. I could tell you that.
Okay.
Because I don't think the machine gun or military type of weapon should be in any community whatsoever. I think military weapons should be for the military, period. But can I come around if I say that, the officer can't have a military weapon? Will somebody take that to say that I say that cops should not have guns? I don't know.
It's a catch-22. It is.
Huh?
It's a catch-22.
It's a catch-22. When you start going down the path, it's such a catch-22 that you have to be careful, especially as a gun safety advocate. You have to be careful in your words because there's so much blogs about me and so many things that could be said that could be misconstrued. So what I try to do is even though I acknowledge everything that you're saying, and you're right, I do not want a machine gun in a NYPD hands, and not every cop is a wonderful human being who's out there working in our community, but a large amount of them are out there
they do,
saving lives.
They are indeed saving lives, and they do protect and serve. That's their mission.
Yeah.
But you're right. And that's why we have to look at it. See, it's not just a one-pony issue, because when you start connecting the dots, Marie, and looking back at the history and the nature of guns in this country, there is no mistake. They are connected in many aspects to the violence in our community. It's black-on-black crime, police brutality, too many weapons, the proliferation and gun manufacturers who just keep making and selling and making and selling, and ultimately we do have to do something. And I like the fact that we have people like you, Marie, who step out with the knowledge that you have, because you are a former Marine. So we honor you because you've protected my country. You stood tall, and you still stand tall. Now you're a volunteer trying to make a difference in our community, and thank goodness you're not alone. You have a group of women and men who support your efforts. And folks, you can't just sit on the sidelines. And I think Marie would agree with me. You have to get involved and be able to be the village that steps up to protect the village. Marie Delos, thank you for joining us again. I got to close it out. The hour goes so quickly. But I hope to have you come back, maybe not 2 years, but come back and say, Byron, we did make a difference. Thank you, Marie. You stand tall in my book, sister. You are a right-on sister. Okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on your show. And next time, let's just hope that we have our universal background check and we can party. We've done some major changes in our government.
Absolutely. You got to vote, people. That's what she's saying. You can be the difference. Don't be the problem. Be the solution. All right, Marie Dulles. Keep walking tall, my sister. All right, folks. Hey, guns in America. When will we ever learn that this is an epidemic of mammoth proportions? Meanwhile, Congress continues to do absolutely nothing about legislating common sense gun control. We must begin to first admit that there are just too many damn guns in circulation. Perhaps it's time that we limit the NRA access to Congress as a lobbyist organization. Maybe too many of our politicians are owing to them because of their financial support coming directly from the NRA. This insanity must stop. Well, you've been listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. Tylon U. Savior, Washington, my producer, Mel Alsop, my engineer. A great special thank you to Jazz Lounge Project and Julian Andrew Myers for my fabulous show's theme music. Hey, tune in next week, Wednesday. I'll be back here live, and guess what? We got Let's Talk You with Dr. Reverend Dr. DLC Boyce coming to you to help you overcome your stumbling blocks. Hey, I'm Byron C. Saunders. It's been all about the BCS experience. Until then, I'm out of here. For the moment, peace and love always.
Come on.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.